Hello and welcome to Blooming a Better Self. My name is Jennifer Salomon and I am your host for this mini-series. Today I will be doing a reflection over my previous episode from last week when I interviewed Mr. Wayne Head. If you have not had the opportunity to go watch it, please go watch it. It was super informational. It had a lot of good points about mental health when dealing with things like depression and anxiety and such, so please go check that out. So today what I'll be doing is reflecting a little bit about what I already knew going into the interview, some of the points that I found very interesting. Of course, I won't be going over all of his points, but I will be going over the ones that stood out to me the most. And then finally something that I will probably continue to do based on this interview. So personally, I always have struggled with a lot of anxiety. I mean, you have been able to tell from most of these videos, but I've always been an anxious child growing up, like chewing my nails, overthinking, always nervous, worried about everything, and I've kind of just gotten used to it because, I mean, it's pretty much who I am now, but I am trying to cope it because as I get older, it tends to get worse sometimes with the scenarios I build over in my head. Sometimes I make a tiny scenario into this huge problem to where sometimes it even keeps me up at night, as ridiculous as that may sound. And that's partly why I'm also doing this project, is because I want to stop that. Like, I don't want to continue to always be so anxious and stressed about everything. And another problem I think I have is that most of the times I have a hard time putting myself first, because usually I feel like when I put myself first, it comes with a lot of consequences, because then that makes other people unhappy with me, or I hurt their feelings, and then I carry all this guilt inside, and then it just worries me because I don't like when people are upset with me. So, but I think that's everyone, right? So yeah, but I do want to find better ways in coping with the anxiety that I build in my head. So, most of his points, some of them I already knew, some of them I haven't before, so I thought it was a pretty good interview. So, something that I already knew going into the interview was that the biggest misconception about counseling and therapy is that you don't want to look crazy. And I think that's super true, because I've been in counseling sometimes, on and off, but that was my first thought, was I don't want to look crazy. I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I mean, I don't feel like I have that big of problems in my life to go to counseling, if that makes sense. But I think anyone can go to counseling, honestly. It doesn't matter how big or small you think your problems are. Sometimes just speaking to someone about what's in your head helps so much. So, just a thought. So that was what I already knew going in, was that part. Some of the points that I thought were interesting were when he mentioned the trickster, using your own, knowing what you already know about yourself and finding little tricks to kind of bring those things back. Since I know that I will make a big deal about little things, something that I could probably do is just, like he said, measure it in a way where, hey, okay, this is a big deal, but maybe taking it a step back and seeing it isn't as big as this other thing. I don't know, maybe I'll try that and see if it works a little bit better for me. Asking yourself, why do you feel this way? Which usually, I don't know, if I try that, it will be for something dumb, and then I feel like, I didn't have to be stressing about this after all. Another thing I found interesting was that anger is usually a mask, is what he said, was that anger is usually the mask that we use to cover what's really going on. So once we get to the bottom of what's going on, then we can take the anger out of the picture, which I think is true most of the time, because usually when we act angry, it's because of something that is actually bothering us more inside. I did like the part where he said to be rational with one's thoughts by leveling the problem as it could be worse to make it a little easier to deal with. I know this one can be a little tricky because you never want to tell someone like, oh, your problem's not really that bad. But at the same time, I think that when someone such as myself is like at that point where it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna go to jail or something like that, you can maybe level it down like, okay, it's not gonna get to that point, you're just overreacting, and it helps kind of level you down to a point where it's like, oh, you know, in my head it seems like it's a huge deal, but maybe in an objective perspective, then it's probably not gonna happen. Another thing I thought was pretty good was the seasonal affective disorder, the SAD. How during certain times of the year we get sad because we're not getting enough sunlight, or we're not walking as much. I know I had heard about SAD before, but I guess I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But he did mention that when we're depressed, we tend to close in more. And when we do that, the best thing to do for ourselves is to open up so that we can help improve our brains chemically, I think is what he said. So then smiling or laughing at least 10 minutes a day has the potential to chemically change how you feel, so in your brain. So to me that's pretty good, because I do notice that when I smile or laugh, at least for a little bit in the day, it helps make a bad day a little better. So yeah, those were some of the things that I thought were pretty interesting. Also, he talked about, like, if you're personally not depressed or have these issues, like when you're dealing with someone that does, remember not to do the don'ts. Like, don't tell them, like, oh, you're making this isn't that big of a deal. Like, don't tell them you're overreacting. Don't tell them, yeah, you're, like, messing up pretty bad. Like, stuff like that. Even if you feel like they are, like, especially when they're freaking out about situations like this, just listen. I think he said to just listen in those situations and let them calm down before even suggesting anything or telling them. Especially don't tell them what to do. Like, don't tell your friend or someone who's struggling, like, don't tell them, like, this is what you need to do. You should just rather listen and then maybe make suggestions, but letting them ultimately do their own decisions, I think, is super important. Because when it's a decision based from them because they wanted to, it's easier for them to move forward with whatever decision they want to do. So just be supportive. I thought that was good. And yeah, those were the things that I found very interesting. Now, the thing that I'm going to carry out from this on is therapy or counseling, like, has never really worked for me. Like, I personally don't find it as helpful. But he did mention something, he used the whole find your right jar of peanut butter. And maybe I just haven't found my right jar of peanut butter. I liked his approach that he uses. He says that he uses a lot of scenarios and he helps you through those so that you know what to do, and I think that's more of what I need. I like to visually, like, hear and see, like, what's gonna happen and then how to get through it. So maybe that's more of an approach I have to do, so maybe I'll keep searching for counseling that will help me with my needs and what works better for me, because usually he also said to be patient, and I like to just be done. And I know that's not always the case. He said that sometimes people want to be in step 4 when they're barely in step 1. So maybe next time I'll be more patient and I'll be sure to find a good jar of peanut butter for me. So yeah. So that was exciting. I really liked the episode. Maybe if you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you have, tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like about it, so that maybe I can make the next interview a little bit better for next Friday. I will have another little worksheet for this week, and I will have the same thing at the top where you tell yourself in the mirror the same things that you have been already. But my challenges and the songs and quote are changing for this week. So the challenge this time, Mr. Wayne talked about having a protective shield for when you start to get in those situations of like you just can't do it. So the first challenge will be draw your protective shield. How does it look to you? What does it protect you from? So that's one. Number two will be, is counseling something you would ever consider? Why or why not? Make a list of the pros and cons. And number three is go for a walk somewhere where you think is beautiful at sunset time. To me, that's one of my biggest de-stressors, is at the campus I work for and go to school. It's super pretty, especially in the sunset time, and I really, really, really enjoy just going for a walk sometimes at sunset time and listening to some of my favorite songs and just kind of decompressing from the day, especially on my tough days. So that always helps me kind of unwind and feel a little better and get my mind clear. You don't even have to listen to music, you can just walk and listen to nature. But yeah. And the song for this segment will be Florence and the Machine, Dog Days Are Over. That's one of my favorite songs ever to make me feel better about a bad day, because I don't know, that song is about getting out of a abusive relationship, which I haven't, but just knowing that, like, the lyrics and stuff, like, she's out of there, she's happy, it always, like, pumps me up. Even the little beat, it's like, the dog days are over. So go check that song out. It's a really good song. Quote for this segment will be, happiness is not the belief that we don't need to change, it's the realization that we can, by Shawn Achor, I think. So yeah, so definitely, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. If you are enjoying these, please give it a like. If you're not, then I'm sorry, but if you've been consistently watching or following me through these videos, I am so happy that you have, and I'm glad that hopefully it's helping you in some way. So thank you for joining me. I also had my plant Darla here with me. I absolutely love this plant. It's so beautiful. So yeah, you have a good rest of your day, and thank you for watching. And next week we will have a very special guest, and she will be talking to us about spiritual development. So thank you again, and have a good day.